Buying jewelry online, pros, cons, advantages, disadvantages. Going to give you 5 of each. Coming up next in episode number 47. So stick around. For those that are new to the channel and wondering who the hell this guy is, my name is DaVo. I'm a professional body piercer and have been since 1994. I own and operate the Axiom Body Piercing Studio located here in lovely and not so sunny Des Moines, Iowa, inside Skin Kitchen Tattoo. So when I talk to you about these things, I'm talking to you with a level of expertise as someone who has been in the industry for a long period of time and has purchased a lot of jewelry and sold a lot of jewelry and actually has ordered jewelry online before too. What we're going to do today is I'm going to give you 5 advantages and 5 disadvantages of buying jewelry online. We're going to start with the pros or the advantages. The first one being is that usually online you can find a much larger variety of jewelry, styles, shapes, colors, materials, and styles than you're going to find at your local piercing studio. No matter how large the studio is, there's a chance they're not going to have that perfect size for you or what you're really looking for as far as design. And there's a lot of reasons for that. As a retail outlet, we have to sell things that sell. Otherwise, we can't keep that stuff in stock and we can't stay in business. So we may not have every piece on the planet. The second pro, is it's usually a little bit cheaper. It's cheaper because, well, they don't have to deal with all of this. They don't have to have a physical space. They're not usually in the business of body piercing, so there's none of that added cost. And there's not the added cost of having someone who is an expert and requires money to stay alive that they have to pay. So usually the jewelry is sometimes about 30 to 40% cheaper than you're going to find at a local studio or anywhere else. The third one being is you don't have to wait for that special order. I used to do special orders. I'm slowly kind of leaning back into doing it, but the problem with special orders that I always had was somebody would come in and they'd want a particular piece, and we'd find that perfect piece. We'd measure things out, get everything so it would be the perfect piece. Then I would either have to place an order for that piece and pay all the shipping and everything else on it, or I would have to wait until the next time I did my normal order with that particular manufacturer. In most cases, most studios, it depends on how busy they are, but generally they're going to place an order with one manufacturer at best, maybe once a month. The reality is that most of us order what we refer to as staple jewelry, or the stuff we pierce with all the time, a couple times a year. We just order a huge bulk amount of it and keep it in stock for that reason. So that, let's say 14 gauge 5/16 curved barbell in blue may not be something that we sell on a regular basis, so we don't stock it, especially with the opal ends. So that means you have to order it. Well, the manufacturer that makes that, I only order from once every 3 months. So that means you either have to wait 3 months or pay more for it. Which do you think is going to probably happen? So when you order online, you usually get the jewelry a little bit faster. Usually. And we'll get into that too. The fourth one, the jewelry can be shipped to you sterile. I know everybody thinks, oh, it's a heel piercing. Don't worry about it. It's fine to put jewelry in there. I don't have to worry about infection, blah, 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 blah. The reality is that piercings can be very fragile even after they're well healed. So putting a new piece of jewelry in some cases can dislodge tears, cause slight tears, etc. If the jewelry is contaminated, there's always a possibility of you suddenly getting an infection or other problem in a piercing that you've had healed for years. So it's important that you sterilize that jewelry. The other issue is, depending on the manufacturer and what their standards are of hygiene, there might have been, I can guarantee you that if it's just in a plastic baggie or a sealed plastic bag, they use their bare hands to put it in there. Number 5, in some cases, it can be a better quality piece of jewelry. The reason why I bring this up is many of you, I know I've had comments from people and I've talked to people through this channel and through my website and everything else, where you live in areas of the world where there just isn't a lot of good shops in your area. Either because you live in a rural area, or maybe it's just not an acceptable practice in your part of the world. So your options are very limited. And part of the problem of it being very limited is the person who's running that shop is really not obligated to stock anything of quality because there's no competition. So your options may be, in some cases even, where you can either go to the retail store, the big chain store, and buy their brand of God knows what, or you have to order online. So it gives you a much broader variety and better quality in some cases. Now it's time for the cons, the disadvantages, the things we don't like. The first one being is the long wait. Yes. If you're ordering something online, usually if you're doing it at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's going to probably take 2 or 3 days for those people to get that order and get it processed, packaged. Then it's going to take however long it's going to take to ship to you. So in some cases, you're looking at a couple days. In other cases, you're looking at maybe a week. Now, there's another thing that you need to consider with the long wait, though. Even though a lot of these companies' websites will list that things are in stock, the reality is they aren't in stock. They basically hide it in the terms of use stuff that jewelry can take 8 to 12 weeks to get to you. I had the personal experience of I needed a piece of jewelry for a relative. I went online, ordered from somebody I'd ordered from in the past. It was fairly quick. Picked out the jewelry for her, had it ready to ship, paid for it, everything else. Didn't come after a week. Didn't get any notification from them that it was why it was taking so long. After 2 emails, I got an email back that had a highlighted section that said, some pieces take 8 to 12 weeks to get to you. That wasn't there when I was ordering the jewelry. It wasn't on the main page. It wasn't on the shipping page. It wasn't on anything. In fact, the shipping page said expect by this date. So always take into account and understand that, like me, it may take 4 weeks or 4 months actually to get to you. The second con or disadvantage is you need to research the manufacturers. Better online sites will list the manufacturer of the jewelry. Some of the other ones, they do not. You need to contact them and ask them where it's being manufactured and etc. And you may or may not get a response. The reason why this is important is it's the only real way you can judge the quality of that jewelry, especially if you've bought jewelry made by that manufacturer in the past and love it and have never had issues with it. We like to have brand loyalty like everything else. If blah, blah, blah works really well, then why would I buy something from blah, 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 blah? If you offer blah, blah, blah. Get it? The third one, number 3, the third con. You need to know the proper jewelry size. Yes, you may have measured it. Yes, you may have worked it out or think you've worked it out. But it isn't like going into a piercing studio where a piercer is going to sit down with something that's a little bit more calibrated, figure out exactly what size you need, and then pull out the jewelry, size it for you, and if it's the wrong size, throw it in the biohazard container and pull out another piece and put in the correct size for you. If you order something online, it's the wrong size, and I'm going to get into some of this later, You may be stuck with that piece of jewelry for the rest of your life until you find somebody that it fits, because most of these places will not take the jewelry back because they can't resell it. Number 4, even some of the better online jewelry sales sites stock crappy jewelry. Anybody who's gone and looked around on the internet for jewelry has noticed that on some sites you'll have a piece for $180, and then the same size and style, right, 2 or 3 steps down, is $4. It's because, and the main difference between the two is the manufacturer, which means it's a difference in the quality of the jewelry, the material it's actually made out of, and etc. and etc. So you really need to be cautious of what you're purchasing. It's very difficult when you're buying something from an online retailer to just go, yeah, everything that comes from so-and-so is great, because sometimes so-and-so will start selling some stuff that ain't so great. So you really do need, like I said before, pay attention to exactly who the manufacturer is. Another thing with quality is they don't always list the third-party testing numbers or certification of in any way, shape, or form of whether or not the material that you're actually purchasing is biocompatible. And that just goes back to doing your research on the manufacturer. Most reputable manufacturers are proud to say that they have material from that. If they don't, then who knows what's going on with them. The last one, number 5, you're going to need to change the jewelry yourself. Now, this might not be too complicated for the more seasoned veterans. Most reputable piercers will change the jewelry for free. Some charge. I don't understand why, but you can always have a piercer change it for you. The reason why this really comes into play is, like I said, a lot of people rely on ordering jewelry online because they live in parts of the world where there isn't easy access to a piercing studio. So some jewelry is going to require additional expertise, knowledge, etc. to change, and in some cases, additional tools. A good example of that would be cat bead rings, especially those that are a thicker gauge. If they're thicker jewelry, it's going to be harder to change that bead or take the bead in and out. And you're going to need ring expansion pliers. So it's going to be an additional $10, but it's something you're definitely going to want to pick up. If you have jewelry that has a flat back and it's in an area of the body where you can't access it, for example, let's say your nostril. If you want to wear a labre in it, you're going to need something to guide the jewelry in, unless you can magically find that hole inside your nose and then hold on to the jewelry as you put the end on. So you're going to want a couple different tools. First one being a taper pin. There's threaded ones even. And you just basically push the taper through the piercing from the outside, then thread it on or hook it into the inside of the jewelry, and then push it in. Another handy thing to have on hand would be hemostats to hold the jewelry while you're pushing it through and then putting the end on. So really, you need to have that expert knowledge, and you might need some extra tools. So that would be the other disadvantage. Just an added bonus thing, I'm going to give you 6 things you should look for when you're picking out the website to purchase jewelry from. The first one being, do they list the manufacturer right next to the jewelry? This is important because if they stock blah, 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 they're probably proud of stocking that, and that's going to drive them business because of brand loyalty and because there's a standard set by that brand. If they don't have any brands next to the name, chances are they're buying low-end stuff, third world country manufactured, uncertified garbage. So always look to see whether or not they list the manufacturer that makes that jewelry. The second thing you want to look for is whether or not there's verification on the jewelry page or what have you that it is biocompatible. There should be some type of third-party testing results and a number assigned to it. ASTM is usually the most common number, basically you can look that up and say, oh, that's biocompatible according to the American Standard of Testing and Measures. It's good stuff. Number 3, and I've kind of beat this one into the ground, but Is the jewelry actually in stock, or is it custom pieces? If it says custom next to it, generally what that means is we have to order it from the manufacturer and then wait on our hands until they ship it to us. And there are a couple of those high-end manufacturers that their turnaround rate is about 6 months. So always check into that of whether or not that jewelry is available for shipment immediately. In fact, send them an email and ask them before you order. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck ordering something and waiting. Number 4, you want to look for whether or not they offer sterilization on the jewelry before they ship it. Sometimes they'll charge you a couple bucks to do that, but it's worth it, as I mentioned earlier. But it's also a sign that they care about their clientele. The 5th one, what is their return policy? As I mentioned earlier, you can measure and measure and measure and then sometimes just get the numbers wrong. And you end up with a piece that doesn't fit your piercing. What is their policy on returning that jewelry? And do they offer a replacement? Do they not offer any type of return? What's going to happen if it doesn't fit right? Or if there's a problem with it. Which we get into number 6. What type of guarantee do they offer for the jewelry? Do they offer any guarantees against defects and other issues? Even the best manufacturers in the world, most of their jewelry is handcrafted. They're human. They make mistakes occasionally. It's usually very rare, but I have had from probably the top 5 or 6 considered greatest manufacturers in the world have had pieces that have been defective. Their policy generally directly from the manufacturer is send it back to us and we'll replace it for free. Or they'll even go, oh, that was wrong. Okay, I'm shipping you out a new piece today. Because they like to keep the clients and they like to keep that standard high. With online jewelry, you really need to know, because it is buyer beware to a large degree, how much they stand behind that jewelry and for how long. Every piece can work great the first couple weeks, but how is that piece going to be in a year? That's what you need to consider. So that's pretty much all I have to say on that subject today. If you have something to add, or I brought up a question, or you have another additional question on buying jewelry online, please leave a comment. I usually answer them on a regular basis. If you like the video, found it informative, give me a thumbs up. We like it when you like it. If you'd like to see more videos covering body piercing and tattooing with a focus on education, hit the subscription and then click on the notification so that you get notified every time we post a video, which is usually about 4 to 5 times a week. Check out our merch store. It's the holiday season. You may need to be giving some gifts. If you have somebody on your list that is into body piercing and tattooing, we have a number of designs on there that I think they would like. Roughly about a dozen different designs in various different colors and styles and different types. Everything from t-shirts down to decals. So check that out. A link is in the description. Here's hoping all your piercings heal with ease and without a single issue. And if you're in the Des Moines, Iowa area, I hope to see you for your piercing needs in the future. Have a good day. It's really cold outside if you're in my part of the world, so stay warm, enjoy yourself, and have fun.